You are listening to Meet the Thriller Author. I am your host, Alan Peterson, and each episode of this podcast will introduce you to a new author in the thriller, mystery, and suspense genres. As a reader, I've been a fan of those type of books for a very long time, and that is why I write in that genre now, and so I'm excited to introduce you to new authors. Discovering new books and authors is such a fun thing to do, and that's what I hope to do with these interviews. So stay tuned for the next episode of Meet the Thriller Author. Hey everybody, this is Alan Peterson with Meet the Thriller Author. And I'm really excited to have a best-selling author, Wayne Stinnett, with me today. Wayne, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Alan. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thanks so much for coming on the show. And if for listeners who might not be familiar with who you are, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your books?
I write the Jesse McDermitt Caribbean Adventure Series and the Charity Styles Action Caribbean Thriller Series. I started out about 3 years ago and published my first book in October 2013, and things just snowballed through the early part of 2014, and I quit my job in May of 2014.
Yeah, that is incredible. The success you've had with your books, and I was reading in your bio, you actually started writing the Jesse McDermitt stories like a decade ago, right?
Yeah, in 1987.
Oh, wow.
I've got a drawer full of rejection letters to prove it.
Yeah, nice revenge. Your success is the best revenge for the rejection letters.
Exactly.
Well, what led you to start writing? Have you always written?
I've been a storyteller pretty much all my life. As a kid, we'd camp out in the backyard, me and my brothers and cousins and whatever, and friends, and I'd entertain them with stories, just make them up as I go. And in 1987, I was working as an estimator for a heating and air conditioning company, and I wrote a computer program that pretty much eliminated my two coworkers' jobs and cut my hours down by about half. And so I was on salary, so they required me to stay there anyway. So during my free time, I just made up stories and used a company's computer to write them.
Once you found years later when you decided to start to give publishing another try?
Yeah, it was. It's kind of a weird story. My wife was cleaning out a briefcase full of all our old paperwork and stuff, and she found my divorce documents from my first marriage. And on the back of it, I'd handwritten several chapters of. It was a real long divorce document. So on the back was several chapters of one of my short stories, and she said that she told me it was pretty good, and I should try it again. So I started digging around, and finally, after about a month cleaning out the garage, I'm kind of a pack rat, I came across the old original 5.5-inch floppy disks with the stories on them, and it took me quite a while to find a computer that had a floppy disk drive. Did that sound come over yours?
No. No, okay. That's good.
That was my cash register ringing on Book Report.
Oh, that's a good sound. I like the sound of that.
But I took the best three that I'd submitted to several agents and publishers back in the 80s and sort of compiled them into 2 novels and just elaborated and expanded on the storyline. And the first book didn't do anything at all, like all first books never do. But when I published the second book, all of a sudden, in the last 2 weeks of 2013, the first book sold over 100. And so I said, well, maybe I can make a little extra change doing this. So I just kept writing. And I wrote my third book and released it in April of 2014. And it took off really big. And then before I even finished the fourth book, I knew I could make a living. And I quit my job 2 weeks before the fourth book was published.
Wow, that's incredible. And you kind of started, the success, they started selling basically kind of on their own, right? If I recall correctly, you didn't really there wasn't like a big promotional push or anything like that. It was like word of mouth.
I didn't even know what promotion was. I learned a whole lot in keyboards.
Yeah.
And that was, I joined K-Boards in, I think about February or March of 2014, and started learning there's so much information that you know what I'm talking about. It's just, you can get a 4-year degree in self-publishing in just a few months of reading.
Yeah.
And I learned, I didn't even know that I had all these opportunities available if I joined Select. So I moved all my books to Select and did a couple of small promos, and then got accepted for a BookBub promo. And it was just phenomenal. It was out of this world. 1,600 books sold in one day.
Wow. Wow, that's incredible. And then before you quit your day job, I mean, you were driving a truck. Were you riding while you were driving around the country, or?
Well, not at the same time,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, that'd be kind of dangerous.
I hauled oversized loads, and oversized loads can only be moved during daylight hours. And in the wintertime, that's only about 8 hours out of the day that I was able to drive. And so during the other 16 hours, I was parked in a truck stop somewhere. And I only sleep about 5 hours a day, so I had a whole lot of free time, and that's where I did the bulk of my writing for the second 2 books.
And do you write like with a laptop, and do you use like on Word document, or do you use like a writing program?
Yeah, just on my laptop with Microsoft Word. I still use Microsoft Word today. Everybody talks about all the advantages of a Scrivener and all these other programs, but I'm real old. I can only learn so much. If I learn anything more, I'm gonna have to forget something. I leave the technology stuff. I leave that up to others. I just write it in Microsoft Word with just a regular Word document, and my formatter puts it together in a Mobi and a PDF and for paperback and ebook. Yeah, I don't even worry about that. I could probably learn it, but it would take time away from writing, and that's what makes the money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you've been you're so generous on the K-Boards, which is for the listeners that don't know, it's a writing. It's not a writers forum. It's for Kindle fans, but there's a section for writers, and that's where I've digitally met Wayne on this forum. And you've always been so generous with your time. And I actually, you had recommended your proofreader Donna, and she proofread my second book. So thank you for that.
Oh, Donna is great.
Yeah.
Super lady, really, really fast. And she does a little bit more than just proofreading. It's more like line editing almost.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say that. Yeah, to say proofreading, because she really puts some insights and like says, well, maybe you should try this. I'm like, oh, this is like beyond proofreading.
Yeah, she does a great job. And the turnaround is, I sent her my last book Friday night, and she sent it back to me Saturday afternoon.
Wow, yeah, this is awesome. And do you write every day?
I try to. Sometimes I take the weekends off, and we go out on the boat and go fishing, or just go out to the beach and look for seashells.
And why did you start writing thrillers? Were you a fan and action and adventure stories? Were you a fan of that genre?
That's what I've started reading. Back when I was just like a little kid, 10 years old, the Hardy Boys mysteries.
Oh yeah.
And then I found, back in the 70s, I guess, I found John D. McDonald and his Travis McGee series. When I got my driver's license, I drove all the way down to Fort Lauderdale from Melbourne, Florida, and went to the Bahia Mar Marina looking for Slip F-18. I wanted to meet Travis McGee. I was kind of disappointed there's no Travis McGee and there's no Slip F-18. But yeah, that's pretty much all I read. Mostly South Florida-based action adventure writers and thriller writers. I read some Lee Child, his Jack Reacher series. My main character's got a little bit of Jack in him. But it's the genre that I've always read, so it's just natural that would be what I write. And it works out really well.
Yeah, and you're very, very focus with your books on different themes, especially when you first started publishing them. I hadn't really read books before on like the Keys and with the sailing backdrop to it. So was that just combining like a lot of your interests, right, in real life, and you kind of that's why you started writing about the action and sailing and all that?
Well, I grew up in Melbourne, Florida, and lived for a while in Marathon down in the Florida Keys. So I lived on a 42-foot Alden-designed cutter sloop anchored in Boot Key Harbor. I had my total expenses was $25 a month for a mooring ball, and that gave me a shower once a day at the marina and a mailbox.
Nice.
Yeah. Expenses were very low. I drove a cab at night and worked as a dive master during the day. And I've worked on several charter boats and fishing boats, and worked in Cozumel, Mexico for a while as a dive master. So it was just natural that since I read mostly South Florida writers, Randy Wayne White and his Doc Ford series, Doc Ford's a marine biologist, and he's out on the water all the time and lives in a stilt house. So it was just natural for my main character to also live in a stilt house and down in the Keys, and works as a charter boat captain.
Yeah, you really struck a chord with the readers, because I had never seen stories like those. I think Amazon categories like sea adventures.
Yeah.
I hadn't even know that existed till you came around. But you really have owned that category the last couple of years.
Well, the true sea adventures are more of a swashbuckling type book, back in the pirate days, but there's no reason why it can't be modernized, and the boats, instead of big sailing vessels, can be high-speed power boats, and the main characters, instead of being pirates, they could be modern-day reluctant heroes.
Did your personality make it into your books? Like with Jesse McDermitt, I know you were also in the Marines, and he's a former Marine. Do you find a lot of your personality in that character?
Yeah, Jesse is me morally, but physically, I'm a lot better looking. I know. No, Jesse's 6'3", I'm 5'9", and he's got all his hair, and he's built and buff, and runs every day and swims every day, and I just sit in my recliner and write. Living was that vicariously through Jesse McDermitt's adventures. But yeah, he's a retired Marine gunnery sergeant, and in the short stories, he was just a 4-year Marine. He got out after his first tour, like I did, and he served in. He's one of those high speed, low drag kind of Marines. He was a sniper instructor. He was in infantry for 20 years. I was in motor transport. We might not be the pride, but without us, the pride don't ride.
Here you go. Yep.
But he makes his living on the water. Well, he doesn't really have to make a living. He's independently wealthy from an inheritance. But he's pretty much the same person that I am. He has the same views on life and the same moral compass that I do. Just he's able to enjoy life a little bit better.
And what inspired you to write your first book back in the 80s?
I went to the Keys for the first time back in the mid 70s as a young man. I fell in love with the place, and a lot of the books that I read were based there in the Keys, and so I just wanted to write about a guy that got out of the Marine Corps and moved to the Keys and took care of whatever came up.
And where do you get your ideas for your books?
Well, for the characters, a lot of the characters are based on people that I've met over the years. I'm 57 years old, so I've met a lot of people. And the scenery, the settings for the books are places that I've been, for the most part. I haven't been to I've been to Cuba, to Guantanamo Bay, but I haven't visited Cuba like Jesse did, sneaking in under cover of darkness in scuba. But most of the places he goes are places that I've been to. And I don't really do any plotting. I just pick a destination, someplace that I think my readers might enjoy learning about. And then I tell Jesse, and I say, Jesse, go to Cozumel, Mexico. Well, he ended up in Cuba. He drives the boat. I just follow along.
Yeah, you take notes for what he says.
Right.
And now you have a new series now. She was one of the characters in one of your books, if I recall, right? You spun her off into her own series.
Yeah, Charity Stiles is she's a former Olympic swimmer, and she joined the Army right after 9/11, became a helicopter pilot. And after the Army, she worked for the Miami-Dade Police Department and was recruited by Department of Homeland Security for the Caribbean Counterterrorism Command. It's a group of individuals that are based in South Florida, and they work to prevent terrorist threats there and terrorists coming into the country. But in the sixth book, she's offered an opportunity to make a bigger difference, and she takes off on her own and becomes a government assassin.
Do you find it? Is there a difference when you're writing for a male versus the female character?
Oh God, yes.
Were you a little nervous about that in the beginning, or?
Yeah, the first book was really, really difficult, and the second one really was not a whole lot easier. But I'm kind of getting into her persona now, and it's becoming easier. But it's still, I can't get inside her head like I can with Jessie, because, she's a woman. She thinks and feels things that men don't.
Mm-hmm. And where do you usually write? Do you have like an office, like a special area you usually write, or you write all over the place?
Well, starting out, it was in the truck mostly, but in our old house, we had a third bedroom that I converted into an office, and it was really crowded. It was just a collect-all room and just had a desk and a chair. But I never really used the desk very much. I sat in the recliner and worked. And now we're in a new house, and I've got a big, luxurious 20 by 20 office with 2 desks, a table, conference table. I even have my own bar.
Nice.
Oh, yeah. And private bathroom, so I don't have to, I can close the door, and when the door's closed, nobody bothers me, and I can write to my heart's content. But I'm still in the recliner. Right now I'm in a big leather recliner, and my dog's sitting next to me, and I read dialogue to her, and she looks at me, and I can tell by her face whether it's good or not.
She's like a beta reader, a beta listener.
Yeah, exactly. But that does help when you're writing dialogue. Just read it out loud. If reading dialogue out loud, it totally changes the way it sounds in your mind. You can write it and you understand how it's supposed to be, but until you read it out loud, it takes on a whole different connotation, whole new meaning.
Yeah, because you try to go for like the like a natural, like a real life conversation. That's what I found that with your books, that you're, when characters are communicating with each other, it's kind of like, it's like you're there versus it's not choppy or anything like that.
Oh, you should hear the audiobooks. My narrator does a fantastic job of personalizing each individual character, and that makes all the world of difference. Now when I write Rusty Thurman's part, when I write his dialogue, I hear Rusty's voice. Before I just, I heard the words in my head, but now I hear his voice because my narrator's just brought him to life.
And do you have audiobook versions for all your books?
Yeah, even the nonfiction.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was gonna say I haven't read your book yet, but I have it. From Blue Collar to No Collar.
Yeah.
Was that just? Can you tell us a little bit about that book?
It was several people have bugged me to do that, and it's just more of I wrote it as if I was sitting in a bar having a beer with a buddy and telling him how I did things and what he should look out for if he wanted to follow this career. And it's a real short read. It's only I think 20,000 words, 25,000 words, but it's found an audience. A lot of people have really enjoyed it and gotten some motivation from it.
Yeah, you probably were getting a lot of questions too about how you did it, and so yeah, it's kind of good to just put it out in a book form and for everybody.
Well, it's not so much a how-to. There are some tips in it and some pitfalls to watch out for, but it's more of a motivational read. I describe how to create a business plan, how to set a goal and achieve it by setting smaller goals to reach it. And it's a psychological thing when you meet a small goal. I mean, it could be a very small, simple goal, but when you reach it, you say, "Oh wow, I can do this," and then you got that next goal, and you look at your plan and say, "Okay, now I have to do this, and I have to do this to get to this next goal," and you just start building up. And each success builds motivation, it builds self-confidence. But without having a plan and a goal, it's really difficult to get ahead.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely gonna have to move that up to my Kindle reader because that's something that I struggle with. I thought, oh, once I got the first book done, it'll get easier, and actually it didn't. So yeah,
no, it doesn't. Like I said, it's a real short read. You can read it in an hour and a half.
Writing more nonfiction? Are you going back to Jesse and Charity?
For now, I'm sticking with the fiction.
Yeah.
I may release another nonfiction sometime later, but it's not really what I am, what I do. Mm-hmm. Chris Fox has had great success with his series, his nonfiction series. Mm-hmm. I've read all 4 of those, and those are some really, really informative, how-to, hands-on approaches to self-publishing and writing. But I just like writing. I like writing the stories, telling the stories.
And when you're writing, do you write? If you're writing a Jesse McDermitt book, do you write that till you're finished, or do you go back and forth between Jesse and Charity now? Or
originally, I was doing just one at a time, and then after I published the first Charity book, I started the next Jesse book, and about halfway through that, I had an idea for the next Charity book, so I just wrote a couple of paragraphs and put down some ideas in the notes section. And before long, I was alternating between the two. I'd write until I got burnt out on one, and then I'd just switch over to the other. And it's a fresh story, and I can jump right into it and just pick it up right from there. But now I just finished Ruthless Charity, the second book, and I'm working on. I've been working on Fallen Hero right along with it, but now I've turned my full attention to that, and I'll probably start slowly developing the next Charity book as I go also. So yeah, 2 at a time.
And how many books do you have now in the Jesse McDermitt series?
I'm working on the 10th one. It's about 20% complete with the first draft. Okay. And the Charity Styles book, the second one is about to be released. And the nonfiction, so 12 out right now, and the 13th one coming.
3 years now, 4 years since you've published the first one?
I started writing seriously in June of 2013, so just past 3 years.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah, that's a great...
It started out just as a hobby, just to kill time on the road, and then I realized, wow, I can make some money at this. Maybe I could outfit a woodworking shop and start building. I love building stuff. My dad was a carpenter, and I always wanted to build boats. So I thought, well, I could build canoes and kayaks and small sailboats, and maybe get off the road. And all of a sudden, my income from those first 3 or 4 books were more than I was making as a truck driver. And I said, well, maybe I can just do this full time. So now I've got a big shop out in the backyard, but I still don't have the woodworking tools.
And what keeps you writing? What motivates you to keep going?
I just like telling the stories. Mm-hmm. So long as people are interested and they want to listen to the stories and read the stories, then I'll keep writing them. I have no plans to end either series anytime soon.
Oh, that's awesome. How many books are you planning to publish next year?
Next year, 2.
2?
I'm cutting back. I had been doing 3 and 4 a year, but now I'm going to cut back. I'm taking weekends off. I'm going to take all of December off, And next summer, I plan to take at least 2 months off and do some traveling with my wife and youngest daughter.
Oh, that's great. And what is your writing process like? Like when you're in the zone when you're writing, do you just like do you like sit down and do you write all day, or how does that usually work for you?
I usually start with editing. I have a way of self-editing. At the end of every day, I'll write the word count right at the end of where I stop writing. I'll just type in the word count, and then I'll make that a style heading, and it appears over in the table of contents. And after 3 days, I'll have three numbers mixed in with the chapters in the table of contents. So when I start the next day, I go to that first number, delete it, start reading as I go along and editing as I go. And when I get to where I ended the day before, I just pick up the story and continue writing. It helps me get my head back into the story. And at the same time, when I finish the book, I've had two pass-throughs editing.
Yeah, that's great, because usually everybody else is like, oh no, write all the way through. So it's kind of refreshing to hear that you actually edit as you write.
It really helps get your head back into it, and you pick up little details that you wrote 2 days ago and forgot about. And so if you just write straight through, you're going to have a lot of hanging details. But doing that, you eliminate a few of them.
Yeah, that's what happened. Yeah, that's happened to me when I'm done and I go back to read it. Yeah, you're right. Exactly, that's what happens. It's like, oh, I forgot about this, or I mentioned this here, and then I never went back to it. Now I got to go back to it.
That's why most writers hate editing.
Yeah.
Because when they finish the book, then they go back and start editing, and they find all these little dangling details and plot points that go nowhere and just end. And you have to rework everything and get it back into the flow. But if you do it as you go, and it only takes an hour or two to read and edit the last 2 days' work, is basically what I do. And by doing it that way, you don't eliminate all of them, but you eliminate a good bit.
And do you have like a daily word count?
I've always attempted to write 1,000 words a day. I never really set that as a goal, but after I published my third book, I started keeping a spreadsheet, and one of the things I kept track of was word count. And then I looked at how long it took me to write that. I think it was like 360,000 words. It took a year, 365 days. I thought, oh, well, that's 1,000 words a day. So I set that as a goal, and I've been trying to do that ever since. And right now, my average is 864 words per day.
Oh, wow.
Over the last, over 3.5 years.
Oh, that's incredible. Yeah, down to the word.
Yeah. I've taken, a week off here and there and taken weekends off, and there's some days I just couldn't write because I was too tired. But I try to manage at least 1,000 words. Now I'm usually good for 12 to 1,500. Some days I'll get up as high as 3,000.
And do you still find time to read, or?
Yeah, I read on average about a novel every week to 10 days.
Oh, okay. And are you still reading like action and thrillers? And
yeah, a whole lot more self-published authors now. And I found quite a few indies that really tell great stories. Michael Reisig, I started reading his books just about the time I published my first book. And it's a strange story. I'm reading his first book, Road Key West. And I get about halfway through the book, and the two main characters meet this Jamaican guy named Rufus. I thought, oh, dear Lord, I've got a Jamaican guy named Rufus in my book, which I just published. And so I finished his second book, and I got an email from him, and I was sitting there staring at my computer screen like, do I open this, or is he going to sue me? And finally I opened it, and he had read my book, obviously, and he told me how much he liked it and gave me a few pointers and didn't mention anything at all about Rufus. And so we got to be real close, and we became real good friends over the next couple of years, and we started exchanging unedited manuscripts. And the last time we did it was last fall. I sent him a book I just finished. He sent me the next one in his series he just finished. And it wasn't even a day later. The next morning he called me and said, You've got your main character looking for emeralds. That's the same as in mine. And we just chalked it up. He used to live in the Keys at the same time I did. And we probably knew a lot of the same characters, and we may have even bumped elbows in a bar drinking a beer. But he told me one time, he said, Wayne, there are no original thoughts. Everything that you write is going to be influenced by all the books that you've read. Mm-hmm. So if something happens like that, you just chalk it up to, coincidence. He harbors no ill will about. I even asked him if I can make my Rufus a little bit more like his Rufus. His books take place in the 70s. Mine take place in the early 2000s. So my Rufus is a whole lot older than his. But when we looked at the timeline of the books, they're exactly the same age.
You guys should do like where both Rufuses meet or something, a collaboration.
Well, we've decided that they're the same guy.
Oh, okay. Years later,
His Rufus is a mystic fisherman that's just kind of a drifter guy, and mine is a retired chef and who works at the Rusty Anchor Bar and Grill in Marathon, and he's kind of an odd character, and he gets into a little mysticism. So we just agree that they've got to be the same person. It's probably somebody we've met in common.
Yeah, there's probably a guy sitting in the Keys going, "Hey, that's like me."
Yeah, they're talking about me. Both these guys.
And do you get a lot of feedback from your readers? Is it like more like people like into the sailing, or do you get a lot of military and Marines, or a little bit of both?
Yeah, a lot of both. A lot of feedback from people that have visited the Keys and have lived there. My descriptions are, I lived there for quite a while and visited there hundreds of times over the years. And the island that Jesse lives on really exists. And it's a place I used to camp and go diving in the channel right out in front of the island. And a lot of people say that the scenery that I describe is realistic. It brings back memories of when they were in the Keys. And the characters, of course, most of my characters are prior military. Quite a few of them are Marines. And there's no chance I'll get any of that wrong.
Yeah.
But they enjoy all facets of it: the boating, the guns, and I have a few guns around the house.
Yeah, it's a fun read because it takes you away. It's kind of like a travel adventure, but there's a lot of action, nonstop action,
Well, they all rank real high in action adventure travel also.
Amazon has such interesting categories. And so you say you're going to continue writing for both Jesse and Charity, right? You're not for next year.
Yeah. John D. McDonald, my favorite writer of all time, he wrote 21 books in the Travis McGee series, and he'd never had any intention of stopping, but he died. Yeah, he was just starting his 22nd book in the series when he passed away back in the 80s. And I have no intention of stopping until the same thing happens. Now I can I can go down to the Keys and the Caribbean and write it off, research.
Even better. Even better.
Yeah.
All right, Wayne. Well, I'm not going to take too much more of your time. Is there anything else that you'd like to tell our listeners before I let you go?
Just keep trying. Just keep staying at it. I mean, I know a lot of your listeners are going to be writers, and the thing that's most important, I think, is to set a goal and create a plan and working towards that goal. And if you don't write it down on paper, it's not really a goal. It's just a dream you've got in your head. But as soon as you write it down on paper and you stick it on your refrigerator and you're reminded of it every single day, and it makes it a lot easier to work towards that success. And eventually you will achieve it.
Yeah, that's great advice, especially because there's so many distractions now, and so many people saying different things. But the most important part is just keep writing and putting good books out, right?
Yeah, if you can tell a good story, you can always hire somebody to make it a good book. I'm not a real good writer. I tell a real good story, but I have good editors and proofreaders and beta readers that turn it into a good book.
All right, great. Well, thank you very much, Wayne, for being on the show. It was really nice talking to you.
Well, I appreciate the time, Alan.
All right, and I'll have links to your website. Your website's at WayneStinnett.com, right? That's your main site? Okay.
Or you can go to Gaspars-revenge.com. That's my main character's boat. And that'll take you to the ship store where you can buy Jesse McDermitt swag.
Oh, cool! I'll have to check that. You have character swag. Cool.
Yeah, T-shirts, coffee mugs, barbecue aprons, tote bags. Got my own line of coffee now, and that'll be on the ship store pretty soon.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, a coffee distributor contacted me. He read my books, and he noticed that my characters drink a lot of coffee. And he said, "Hey, I'm going to send you some of my coffee. What's your address?" So he sent me some, and I loved it. And so instead of Jesse was drinking a cup of coffee, Jesse's drinking a cup of Hacienda La Manita coffee.
Oh, that is still cool.
And now they send me 2 or 3 pounds every month. And
so you're like set for coffee now.
Yeah. And my characters drink Pusser's rum, and the owner of Pusser's happens to be an avid reader also. And last time I went to the Keys, I got several bottles of really good rum for free.
Wow.
I'm still waiting for the people from Rampage Yachts to send me a 45-foot convertible, but
there you go.
I'm not holding my breath.
Dream big. Oh, that is too cool. I'm definitely as a big coffee drinker, I'm definitely going to order that coffee because now I'm curious as hell to try it.
It's called Hacienda La Manita Terrazzo. It's spelled with 2 R's, and it's grown on a small farm in Costa Rica. The farm has its own school. It's got its own hospital. Most coffee farms, the harvesters go out and they pick every bean off the tree, and they're paid by volume. These harvesters are paid a straight salary. They go out and pick only the ripe beans. They have other workers that keep a shade tree over the coffee tree pruned just right. They grow all the coffee trees from the bean itself all the way up, and it's a fantastic farm and a great cup of coffee.
That is an incredible small world. My mother was Costa Rican, and she still lives in Costa Rica. And I actually was born in Costa Rica, but I've been living in the States since I was, over 20 years. But what a small world.
I visited Costa Rica on the Pacific Coast. I worked for a Sea Turtle Preservation Society out of Melbourne Beach, Florida. And we went down there to observe their nest protection activities. And it was a beautiful country, a fantastic little country.
Yeah, my mom's still down there, so I try to go down there once a year or so. So yeah, it's a small world.
Bring me back some Hacienda La Manita coffee.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out. I'll take some pictures down there.
Do you speak Spanish also?
Yes, I do. Yeah,
with a Minnesota accent.
Yeah, well, my father was Minnesotan, my mother was Costa Rican, so he spoke to me in English, she spoke to me in Spanish, so I kind of got lucky. I never really had to learn both languages. So I speak English with a Minnesotan accent and Spanish with a Costa Rican.
Oh, great.
All right, thanks a lot, Wayne. I'll talk to you later, and thanks for being on the show.
Okay, you take care now.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Meet the Thriller Author. I'd like to ask you to please rate and review this podcast over on iTunes. It only takes a few seconds, and it really helps me get the word out about the podcast. So I would really appreciate that. And you can visit my website at thrillingreads.com/podcast. If you haven't subscribed yet, you can do so from there. You can do it on iTunes. You can do it with Stitcher. You can do it on Android. The RSS feed is there, so make it very easy for you to subscribe to this podcast. And you can also join my mailing list from the website. And I've actually been getting some pretty cool offers for listeners. So if you want to get a great deal on a thrilling read, you can join the mailing list over at thrillingreads.com/podcast. And you'll get I'll let you know about these great offers that I've been receiving that I can pass on to you. And please visit my website, my author website over at alanpeterson.com. And you can download my best-selling thriller The Asset for free from there. Thank you very much, and until next time.